And here we are. Welcome, everyone, to our Lizzie Borden Tea and Murder podcast. We are back. It's been a while. Shelley, how are you? I'm Kim Eberly, and Shelley Dietz are the other host. And today we have Noelle Hannibal with us that we're very excited to have with us. So I'll just ask you, how are you ladies doing tonight?
We're doing great. It's a hot summer. August 4th is coming.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
It
this
is
is
a
true.
hot summer.
Yeah. So, I don't know where to begin, Noelle. I have so much to ask you, but first of all, I just want to mention a few things. You recently, well, first of all, you have In the Wings production theater company. In Montreal, Canada, and you produce many shows there. You're recipient of 6 Broadway World Regional Theater Awards, including Best Independent Theater Company, which is very impressive. And you represent a select group of artists for personal appearances and conventions, and you have also this master class I want to talk about. But let's get to the most recent thing and why we're here. And that's most recently, I think you must have, did you license the Lizzie Borden musical to have in your theater to do the play? And let's talk about that. That's really exciting because that show was on off Broadway for a while. I think it debuted in Manhattan, New York, and then it
Mhm.
just
I
got around.
think I think the first major production was in the UK in
Oh,
2019.
okay, correct me.
So I think they had done the studio cast recording about 10 years ago, and then they released that, and I don't think they had a New York run initially, but because of the buzz of the cast recording, they made the rights available to independent theater companies who or colleges or community theater companies who wanted to license a show. And so there were a number of productions. I think the website says 60 cities in the world that they've
Yes.
been in. And
Wow,
I, I
that's a
had
lot. Yeah.
yeah, and I had heard it 10 years ago. Like, I had the album 10 years ago because I'm a musical theater fanatic. And and oh, sorry, I thought I heard someone.
Oh, go ahead.
And
Sorry.
so I was looking for. I produce primarily rock musicals. Montreal is a very much a rock town and a metal town, but it's also a
Oh,
horror town. So we had done Carrie last year really
yes.
successfully, but it's Carrie. So, like, I mean, I knew everybody would flock to this show. And coming out of that and having to do that, produce it while still in a pandemic,
Mm,
wearing masks, like we had to wear masks on
yeah.
stage because there was still a mask mandate. It was really hard. And so my director, Nadia Verrucci, and I talked, and we said, let's find something that's a small cast, because Carrie was a cast of 14. Let's
Mhm.
just find something that's a small cast that's going to be maybe a little easier to, less costumes, less sets, less everything. And I said, you know what? I love this show. I don't know if it's ever been done here. I don't know if the rights are available. Let me research. And I reached out to the people on the Lizzie the musical website, which
Mhm.
the email went to the authors of the Lizzie musical, and I got a reply from the authors. So I was like, wait,
Oh,
what? Like, you're literally replying to me. In the process of me obtaining the rights, they
Yeah.
switched. They have a licensing company now taking care of all of
mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
it was really nice to just have that initial contact with them to license the show. So yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
let
that's so
me let me
exciting.
ask you, Noelle. Do they know Lizzie Borden in Canada, in Montreal? Are they familiar with her
Yeah.
story?
So here's the thing. I thought, being an Anglophone, as an native English language speaking person is called, and from the US living here, I thought everybody would know Lizzie Borden. The Anglophone side of Quebec and Montreal definitely do. The
They do.
Francophone, the French language native speakers, do not.
Ah,
So that was the challenge in kind of educating the town before we had our run as to who Lizzie was, what
Mm-hmm.
the story was, stuff like that. Like in the press release, telling details so that when it went to the media, people would know what this was and what it was about.
Yes, I noticed that your promotional material was in French and also in
Yeah, I
English
noticed that too.
at the
Do you
same
speak
time.
both languages?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
It's crazy. I've lived here for 20, I calculated in winters because I'm from Los Angeles. So I've lived here 23
Oh,
winters,
okay.
23 winters. But, and when I moved here, they give you like 6 months of French lessons. And
Mm-hmm.
I took these lessons and
Wait, pause on that. So, how does that, you moved here, you moved there, is that like a universal curriculum that they give you French lessons when you move
it's,
there? Like,
yeah, it's you
that's
now.
great.
I think it's a law because they're
Oh,
a little.
wow.
It's a
Oh,
little It's a
they
little
should have
bonkers
that in the
here.
US. Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, but it was an optional thing. And I thought, I want to learn the language, but I didn't realize A, how hard French is to learn,
Yeah.
B, how to wrap my not college age brain around learning a new language, which is also really hard, and C, that it was supposed to be a conversational French class, but it was really more the instructor lecturing. And it was 3 hours twice a week. And I remember every class for 2.5 hours, I was like this. And then the last half hour, I was like, oh, okay, I understand. So
Yeah.
my comprehension is good. Like if somebody says something to me in French, I can break it down enough to know what they're talking about. I can read things and know what they are. My ability to actually form a sentence in my head and speak it doesn't exist because I work in English language theater.
Yeah.
And English language. I'm a singer songwriter as well, and I do, I work with doing the Comic Cons and as an actor, and all of these things. I do like social media management for a few companies as well. It's all in English, so I have no opportunity to practice it or like to speak it really. If I worked in a place that was bilingual, I would be like, hey, can you just speak French to me? But
Duolingo.
I
Duolingo.
tried.
So,
My brain
yeah.
is like, mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
during COVID, I did German with Duolingo. I was really into it. They had this girl who actually taught German in NYU, leading this little group. So every Sunday
Wow.
morning we would she even had a textbook I got, and like we would do the German. It was fun. It was fun.
That's great.
Yeah, it was
Like
good.
in the pandemic, I did in the first month of the pandemic, I started a podcast. I started a like Facebook group friends hang on Zoom thing. I produced a reading of a new play. I started doing live streams every Saturday, called it Quarantine Saturdays. Um, Started songwriting with a bunch of different people, and I was like, I went from doing, like normal life to being stuck at home, but doing twice as much as I was doing before. And I had to kind of scale back a little bit because I was exhausting myself.
Yeah. It's and speaking of exhausting, the score for Lizzie is very challenging. Are you a mezzo
Yeah.
soprano?
I'm actually a legit soprano. So
A legit soprano?
I was classically trained as a soprano. Like at the end of every ensemble number in any musical, I was the person hitting the high D. Like that was always me.
Oh.
And then musical theater changed when Rent came out first in 1996, and then it changed even further when Wicked came out in 2005, and then when Hamilton came out in 2015. So I had to kind of shift. I started it back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. I had to shift how I sang because everything is big and belty and broad, and
Yes,
like
yes.
these power notes, and I was like la 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 la, and that just doesn't like I wouldn't get cast if I went into an audition and sang like If I Loved You or something. And what I started doing was I started watching YouTube videos of singers that I loved, like Natalie Weiss and Casey Levy, who are two Broadway performers that I adore, and trying to mimic them in their singing.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then I started working with a vocal coach who had moved to Montreal, also from the US, who taught a whole bunch of Broadway actors at Ithaca College. And my first lesson with her, I sang something from Chess, which was a show I was about to do. And she said, "Where did you learn to belt?" Which that's what that chest voice type of singing is called. Where'd you learn to belt? And I told her what I did. And she said, "Well, you're doing it absolutely correctly and in a really healthy way." I was like, awesome. So, you have to adapt, right?
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge Keith is here from Lionsden. He has a theater company in Canada too. Keith Morrison. Yeah. So,
Halifax, I think. Halifax.
Oh, Halifax. Is that close to where you're at? Excuse me, I don't know my Canada.
It's further east, like considered Atlantic Canada, I guess.
Near Nova Scotia, right? That way.
Halifax is in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So if you know, a lot of people know what Peggy's Cove is. That's where the TWA.
I know, yeah.
Peggy's Cove is just outside of Halifax. So I actually was in Halifax for the first time in just before the pandemic, summer of 2019. I was in the Canadian tour of Hedwig and the Angry Inch, that musical. And we played at, it's an LGBTQ type show. And we played at the Halifax Pride. We played at Charlottetown PEI Pride. We played at Toronto Pride. We played at Montreal Pride. So I was in Halifax for about a week, and absolutely, it's just gorgeous there. Absolutely stunning.
I've actually been to, now that I think about it, I've been in Halifax. I went to Nova Scotia. I went all the way to the tip of, as far as you can go to the northern East Canada, which I think is Nova Scotia.
I don't know like what it looks like on the map. All I know is that to get there from Montreal, I got to the airport and then we had to like walk onto the tarmac to get on our propeller plane.
Yeah.
And I was like,
lucky you.
I haven't been on a propeller plane in like 40 years and I'm terrified. It was so tiny. I think there were 12 rows. It was terrifying.
Yeah. So,
hi, Keith. We'll say hello to Keith. Keith has been recording Lizzie's trial with a group called Lion's Den Audio. It's a YouTube channel. And, if you haven't caught it, you'll really enjoy. He has actors doing all of the parts. He says, "Oh, best wishes with the show."
It's fabulous. It really is. I mean, what people are doing with Lizzie Borden creatively, it's just astounding. I love it. I have to ask you though, did you know anything about Lizzie Borden before you decided to do the theater production? I mean, how did you find out about her?
So when I don't know how old, very, very young, it must have been in the 70s, the TV movie with Elizabeth Montgomery.
Oh,
yeah.
And I saw that like when it aired, whatever year it was, 70 something. I was young. So here's
75.
The thing.
It was 75.
So I was raised by, my mom is still the coolest person on the planet. She's 88 years old. And my mom and my older sister, Kim, introduced me to stuff that most people wouldn't introduce like a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old to. My sister was big into horror, so when our mom was working on the weekends, we would sit at home and watch the Hammer horror movies, or Elvira or Grimsley, who was a Los Angeles-based horror host, and we would watch all these movies. And I remember seeing a movie called starring Klaus Kinski and Uwe Allen, I think is her name. It was a German-Italian horror film called Death Smiles on a Murderer. And I saw it when I was like 8 years old with my sister. And I like I had an obsession with this film because it was so good. I watched it recently. It didn't hold up so much, but so I had seen the Elizabeth Montgomery Lizzie Borden, and I was really fascinated by the story, and I kind of am fascinated by things that happen, like horrible things that happen, but then when they're documented for media, for book or for television or for film, that they include the trial element.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about the musical, is that like the second half of the second act is the trial, and
Yes.
it's dialogue. Like I say, I played Emma Borden. I have no recollection of anything of that kind. No, sir, I don't recall. I don't know what you asked me. I don't da 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 da. And it's literally verbatim from the script transcripts.
Oh, nice. I
From
didn't know
the
that.
court transcripts. Yeah.
Nice.
So I had this early kind of knowledge of who Lizzie was, and I did see the Christina Ricci film as well, which I think is fantastic. I prefer the Elizabeth Montgomery one, just maybe because it was the first one I saw. I don't know.
Just so you know, if you're talking about the latest one, the Christina Ricci and the other actress,
Chloe Sevigny.
yeah, that movie is not even close to the real story.
Yeah.
That is like all made
Creative license.
creative license for to sell a movie. It's to sell a movie.
Yeah.
And what killed me about it, it kind of like was the fact that when they went in and they would get interviewed, these two actresses, they would say that this stuff was true. Like, this is the way it came down, and they represented that. And it just, like, Shelley and myself, like, grew more gray hairs because, you know, and it was the same way with the Christina Ricci made for, I think it was an HBO special. It was a series.
TV.
It was a series, right?
Yeah.
The Chronicle.
All made up, but I have to say it was very entertaining because I was cracking up because every time, you know, every episode she was killing somebody else off. And I'm like, man, this girl has hatcheted so many people in this series.
Nobody left in Fall River.
Right, nobody left.
Well, with the music, I mean, the musical definitely takes a lot of creative license as well. So, you know, because all that was really known about Lizzie was sensationalized media accounts and the court transcripts. That's kind of really realistically what was known. So the musical, I think the musical has a bit of an alignment with the Chloe Sevigny one in that there's a relationship between Lizzie and the next door neighbor, Alice Russell. There's the, you know, in my PR for the show, I would find articles and things that were not just mainstream media articles. And I found this great article by somebody saying that they had interviewed somebody who had interviewed Emma Borden, and Emma confessed. And I kind of used that a little bit in my head in the show, because there is a little bit of all of the characters, because whether or not Lizzie was crazy and delusional and hearing voices, there are moments in the play where we're a little bit of like the voices in her ear, the devil on her shoulder, so to speak. So there is some creative license there, but it's kind of, you can't, if you try to just tell the story based on what the actual facts are, it doesn't really make for entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, then just do the court case, or just do so that's what I kind of found really interesting about the musical. It was very different than the Elizabeth Montgomery film.
And I was going to say the Elizabeth Montgomery film, out of everything that's been presented media-wise, is probably the closest to the story. Except for a few minor things in there. But it's probably the closest. Yeah.
So it was fun for me, though, like having known the story at an early age and kind of, you know, been fascinated anytime something new would come out about it, to do this piece and in the process, like, I believe in researching for a role. When you're an actor, like, you can't just, look at the script and take it at what it is. You have to find something that makes the person human, so that they translate from the page to like a physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was going to ask, so what did you find out in doing your research?
I mean, the main things that the thing
that's stuck out for you.
The thing that broke my heart the most is that Lizzie left Emma. That's what broke my heart. The fact that after the trial away and they never saw each other again, and then they died within, what was it, a week?
9 days.
9 days. Like, it blew my mind. It really blew my mind.
Emma actually left Lizzie.
Yeah.
Lizzie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Lizzie stayed in Maplecroft, and Emma left Maplecroft, the house. Yeah, because she didn't like the goings on in the house. And she was the one that left Lizzie high and dry, basically.
Okay, interesting.
Just
I must have read something that got it wrong.
and there, and it's understandable. There's a lot of stuff out there that does get it wrong, and that's why we have this podcast, because we talk about certain aspects of the case and the whole story. And I actually have a book out. It's called Inadmissible: The Case of Lizzie Borden and Other Murderous Women. I put in there because I wanted to talk about the time period and society and women and why they commit murder, possibly. Shelley has a keen interest in that topic too. Yeah, Emma, I think did her best as a devout religious woman, to stick and stay sisters. And it was just too much that was going on. And I don't think Shelley will ever know really what was going on in the house that made her leave.
Oh, I think it was a number of things, not just one thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of things went where they couldn't live under the same roof anymore.
But ironically, Noelle, Lizzie loved the theater. And she was a theater buff. She went to see the theater too. And, there's an irony in any production of Lizzie Borden, for me anyway, I think.
Well, that's one of the things that Aaron, who played Lizzie, and I, we would have a lot of conversations and, establishing a sisterly bond. And, like, you have to kind of, with your co-star, you have to do that work. Otherwise it's not believable. And that was something that we discovered was about her love for the theater, but also that she, I don't want to say enjoyed the attention that the media gave to her, but like I said, you guys know way more about Lizzie Borden than I do. I only know what I found on the internet, but that I'm sure you saw the clip that I sent you of our production.
Well, we're going to show it. Is it okay if we show it?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I'd like to show that.
Yeah, Kenny, can we go to the clip?
Because I think that really shows kind of from what we got from our research of the dynamic between the sisters and the dynamic between Lizzie and the people who adored her, and the reaction of Emma to the people that adored Lizzie.
Okay, so Noelle was so gracious to send us a clip of the show that she was in. So let's take a look at that one. It's rolling.
Good people of Fall River, my sister and I thank you for your kind regards in our time of sorrow. We have on this day offered a $5,000 reward to be paid to anyone who can secure the arrest and conviction of the person or persons who occasioned the death of our father
and his wife. Until that time, we pray that the Lord will sustain us.
Lord,
for the morning.
Emma, are you going to give me away?
No, Lizzie, I won't.
Yes, you will. But I will let you see. I won't give in 1 inch. If thou should mark iniquities, Lord, Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with thee, that thou may be feared. My soul, it waits for the Lord, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord, more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. My name is Lizzie Andrew Borden, not Elizabeth. Lizzie. Andrew, after my father. I was so christened. I am innocent. I leave it to my counsel to speak for me. Maybe someday we'll walk in the open.
My full name is Emma L. Borden. I am the sister of Miss Lizzie Borden.
Maybe someday we'll all forget.
The name's Bridget Sullivan. I was sometimes called Maggie by Miss Emma and Miss Lizzie.
Maybe someday they won't whisper, point and stare.
I am Alice Russell.
But my secret's safe now.
I exchanged calls with Miss Lizzie Borden regularly. She always received me upstairs.
My secret's.
Okay, and
I
we're
can't
back.
believe it. That is my favorite cut. The Watchman for Morning is my favorite.
Oh,
So
it was
that-
my favorite too. And what's
Oh.
funny is our director was her least favorite. She's like, oh, this churchy song. And I think
Oh,
it was
fabulous.
coming out of doing Carrie last year, where I played the mother. And all of my stuff was very churchy and very religious. And this was the only song in Lizzie that is not punk rock. But it was my favorite. I just loved singing it, and I love singing with Aaron. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
our
Yes,
voices
yes.
just, we blend
The
really well
harmonies,
together.
yeah, the harmonies were beautiful on that
Thank you.
piece. I love that one, and the other one, of course, "Burn That Old Thing Up" is
Oh yeah,
great.
my other
That's
favorite.
great. Yeah.
Anyone I did as just like a duet with Aaron. I mean, I also did a song. I don't know if you're allowed to have bad language on your show, but it's called "What the F."
Yes,
And
yes.
I literally sing and say in that one scene, I say the F word 32 times.
Oh, wow.
So
After-
literally the song is
Wow.
what the.
Yeah.
Now
After
That's
Lizzie,
getting out
like,
your frustration
singing the
right there
hymn,
for the
you
day,
go to
right?
that. Yeah.
And
It
Chip
was
was
so
singing along a
fun.
little bit too, wasn't he?
yeah, I was gonna say we didn't have a dog in our show.
It's like, but I really liked, and I like the fact that I liked you guys that the lines were from the actual script. that they were saying, that you were reciting. And that, I think that was the only words that Lizzie spoke in the trial. Am I correct, Shelley? Like,
She
I am
only,
innocent?
yes, yes. She only gave testimony during the inquest.
Right. But at the
Yeah.
trial,
hmm
before something, those were
Yes,
the only words she said, right? The
that's
last,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
it was
love that you
all
put
it
that
was
in there.
all yeah, it's
Mhm.
all the whole trial sequence. She's in her jail cell, like singing, maybe someday I'll do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's the
Mhm.
three of us are alternating. First we step in one at a time into the witness box. And then there's a sequence where it's Alice and Bridget, and they're just doing kind of like a back-to-back switcheroozy thing. And then there's a section where it's the three of us, and we're kind of walking in a circle as we're each saying our lines, which are coming kind of on top of each other, but it was all pulled from the court transcripts.
Yeah, that's good.
I have to show, I know I showed you before we started tonight, but this is actually one of the teacups, saucers, and spoons that we used in the production. So this
Oh,
was gifted to me by a wonderful woman who ran an animal rescue here called Gertie's, who sadly passed away just before our production. But a lot of the props that we got and bits and pieces were actually from her home. So this was, and I kept I kept the tea set. A lot of the stuff, I donated, or I gave back to her family, and but I was given permission to keep the tea set.
Yeah,
So
it looks
I
very
did.
Victorian.
it's
Very
very
Victorian.
pretty.
Yeah.
Lizzie
With the
would approve.
little teeny tiny
That's cute.
spoon.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Lizzie would approve of that. And your friend's name was Gertie, and she
Gertie.
ran an animal rescue. Yeah, which
Yes.
was
Yeah.
a cause dear to Lizzie's heart, of course.
Speaking of tea, Rena, we usually have Rena Scalar come on and do a little thing. She has her own like tea company.
She's our tea lady.
She's our tea
Yeah.
lady, right? She's always
Ooh.
introducing these teas, and right now I'm so proud of her because she spent months raising money for herself and for I think like maybe 5 or 6 other teachers. And it's a program called Recorders Without Borders, where teachers go to Kenya to teach teachers in Kenya how to teach their kids about music and to play the recorders and stuff.
Which was
So-
like the first thing that any of us learned to play,
right.
right?
It's cool. This is true.
That's true.
Yeah, so she's there in Kenya right now, having a blast. I'm sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is pretty amazing, right? So, your theater company, or I should say, your production company. Let's see, the also does this program called Masterclass. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, we haven't done one since 2020. We did a virtual one. Basically, when I started the company, I actually started it as a PR person. So I was offering my services for doing publicity for independent theater companies in Montreal who couldn't afford, to pay somebody $500, $600, $700. So I kept my rate really low, and I'll write your press release, I'll do your social media. That's how it started. So that's why it's called In the Wings Promotions and not In the Wings Productions. And I had too much of a following to change it once I decided to start producing theater. I started the Masterclass series in 2013 by accident. So I mentioned Natalie Weiss earlier as a singer that I learned to belt from on YouTube. She was one of my favorite YouTubers. She has this incredible series called Breaking Down the Riffs, where she'll take like a riff that Mariah Carey does, and she breaks it down step by step and teaches you to do it on like la and dot and numbers and letters, and then put it all together. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And we had followed each other on social media for a while. We had some people in common, and she reached out to me on Twitter and she said, "Hey, I'm doing a masterclass in Toronto. I know you're not in Toronto, but I think you're in Montreal, if I remember correctly." And I said, "Yeah." She said, do you want to help me put one together?" said, I've never done anything like that, but okay, what does it entail? And she's like, okay, you need to find like a venue. And she says, I'm being flown into Toronto by the university that she was doing her class at. She said, so I'll have them fly me into Toronto and home to New York City from Montreal. So we would just need to cover like the train for me from Toronto to Montreal, which is like a 4-hour train ride. And it's like $100 maybe. And she said, and if you're comfortable with it, I could just stay with you if you have room. And I was like, I have a guest room. So we put together this class, and it was so funny. We met each other. I picked.
Okay. So Noelle, you froze up. Maybe you can like come back, like boot out.
A 32 bar cut, so like
there we
about
go.
a minute
You're back.
of singing. But they have to interpret the lyric because, in musical theater, if you just sing with a blank face, nobody's going to believe you. You have to believe what you're saying at all times. And so then she would coach them. They would sing, and then she would coach them, and they would sing it again, and she would correct them. The class ended with an hour-long session of breaking down the riffs, where she broke down, I think it was Beyonce, a riff, and taught it to all of us. And I think I'm frozen. Can you still hear me?
Well, you were, but now you're back.
You're okay
You were
now.
frozen, but now you're back.
Mhm.
It's funny. I think
Can you
we're on
hear
a
me?
big
I
delay.
don't know if you can hear me and see me.
No.
Everything is.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
can.
You're good.
Yeah, you're
good.
good.
You're good.
You're good. I think she's on a
I don't
delay.
know.
Yeah.
It's on a delay. That's it.
I don't
you're
know if
fine.
it's
Yeah.
me.
No.
All is well.
Just like, let me just message her to tell her to reboot, maybe. Just go, come out, or go out and come back. Go out and come back.
It's coming through fine on my end.
I'm not sure.
Noelle,
Can you hear us?
yeah. Like, let me see if I can type her. I'm trying to. There she goes. I told her to go out and come back.
This hasn't happened for a long time.
Hey,
It's the gremlin.
roll with it.
Here she
She's
is.
back.
Here we go. We're back.
I was rambling on, and then I was like, is it just me? I'm frozen. My face is frozen. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's okay. You're back now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we heard a
got
lot
one
of
for
that.
We did.
I looked up, and I was like, well, I'm still connected. So
It's weird. I think you were on a delay. Something happened where you got into a delay, and then when you were saying I'm frozen, you were frozen way before you said that, and then you came back, and then well, anyway, you're back.
We were talking about breaking down Beyonce's riff.
Yes. So the end of the class was her teaching us how to do this riff, which I wish I could remember now, but it's all like, she'll go, okay, here's the riff, and she sings it perfectly because Natalie is one of my favorite voices, but she'll break it down. Like if the riff is like, whatever, she'll be like, okay, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, da, da, da. Like she teaches it so slowly and so specifically like that. And I think we had 14 students, and she decided to stay in Montreal for a couple days. And like, we just hung out at my house and ate pancakes and watched The Voice, which was amazing. But people then started asking me, when's the next masterclass? I'm like, oh, like I have a lot of friends in the Broadway community. As a theater professional, everybody knows everybody. So I started reaching out to people that I knew and said, hey, like, this is how much I can pay you. I'll pay for your travel. I'll put you up in a hotel for 2 nights. Like, this is, do you want to do this? And I have had Tony Award winners. I've had Academy Award winners. I've had, it's been just incredible, but, really hard to put together for all of the things I'm doing as one person. It's really hard. And then the pandemic happened, and And coming out of it, I think I've just been too fatigued from life to add one more extra thing. So it is,
Yeah.
I have a list of people who want to come. It's just a matter of like, okay, right now airplane travel is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it is.
a flight to and from New York that's normally $250 is going for $750 right now, which is why I drove 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there are not very many educational opportunities here, especially for people who want to be professional or who are professional. And so I kind of tapped into that niche, a little similar to what I did with doing rock musicals, because at the time nobody in Montreal was doing rock musicals, and I was looking at the theater, the theater here, and thinking people aren't going to English theater because it's not the town for Oklahoma or Annie Get Your Gun. It just isn't. Like, my husband's like, oh, you should do Oliver. I'm like, A, I don't want to have to be responsible for 15 children. And B, I just don't think this is the town for that show. It's why it hasn't been done here.
So I don't want to be like, well, yeah, I do. Okay, so in Canada, do they have, because I see filmmakers all the time and they're getting these huge grants, for money to do their productions, and here in the US, we can apply for grants. In Hub 17, where I'm at right now, we have a small black box, a theater. It's like a 60-seater. When we can, turn into a small black box theater. And whenever I do a show, I always apply for grant money to pay the crew, because that's how it's done here. And I was wondering, because I'm looking through your production company, and you have some mega talent in your company, like under the talent bookings, like Robert Wisdom. He's done things, with The Alienist, which I love that show.
Yeah.
Supernatural, Andrew Rothenberg, who's been on True Blood, another one of my favorite shows. He's been on Weeds, Jeffrey
Walking Dead.
Weissman, Back to the Future, and you've been on Star Trek, The Final Conflict. You've also did The Next Generation. I mean, you've done like a few things there yourself, Missy. And like just a ton of oh, you were on Buffy the Vampire Slayer too? That's hilarious. I used to love that show.
Yeah, so the thing with like grants here, the first thing is with grants here, I've never applied for one because the process is really daunting. And living in Quebec, I won't qualify for a French grant because my stuff is in English. So I have to apply to Canada Council for the Arts. But
Interesting.
I'm in the process of applying for my first grant because everything I've done in my 8 years of producing theater, in my 10 years of doing master classes, has entirely been by my credit card.
Wow.
And I hope that I make enough money in ticket sales to pay myself back. And I've been lucky in that I have been able to, but I'm not making any money producing theater in Montreal because our theaters are like 100-seat theaters. I can't, it's not possible. I wish it was. As for my representing these other actors, they're all friends of mine. So Bob Wisdom and I worked on a TV show together in the 90s called Cracker. Andy Rothenberg and I went to junior high school and high school together. We've been friends since doing high school drama, and we did The Music Man together in 8th grade, and we did drama festivals when we were in high school. We actually won a trophy for doing a Shakespeare show that Maureen McCormick handed to us, which was very exciting.
That's fabulous.
And yeah, I mean, I grew up in LA where you get a degree in theater, but you have to go into film and television because there's not enough theater, and it's not sustainable as an actor to do anything other than. So when I started doing film and television, it was my friend Jolie Fisher from Carrie's younger sister, Jolie and I knew each other from high school. We had done a musical together. We did Hair together in '88. And she booked Ellen DeGeneres' sitcom as her best friend. And she said, I will get you on the show as an extra, but on a union voucher so we can get you into Screen Actors Guild. Because if you're not in the union, you won't get anything and you won't make any money either. And she got me on that show. I worked on that show for 2 seasons. I was a featured extra, but it was every Friday I was on the Ellen set on the Disney.
Oh, that's
Disney
great.
lot.
Did she treat you well? Because there's controversy over that. I
mean, I haven't seen her since 1990, whatever. So I can't say what she's like now, like with all the success that she's had. But I will say working on the set with her she was fantastic.
Great.
Everybody was treated really well. In fact, I made it into a gag reel in season 2, I think, which I think it's up on YouTube. It used to be. So a gag reel is like all the mistakes that actors make where, they make a trip over a line and they cut and, it's like that B-roll stuff. And there was a scene that we were filming in Ellen's apartment and it was like a New Year's Eve party. And the scene started with her sitting like on the arm of the sofa telling me and this guy a joke. And then she walked into the scene with Jolie that was like the actual written scene. And she ad-libbed. She would only first she started off by telling the joke and then every take, because we all laughed like 10 times, she would just give us the punchline. And it would change with every take. And so she would leave us laughing and walk into the scene with Jolie, and then the two of them would start laughing. So I was very proud to make it onto a gag reel of Ellen. The Star Trek thing was I had an agent that never sent me to auditions. I was like, why am I like, I'm 20 whatever years old. I was, I'm like just under 6 feet tall. I was rail thin naturally. I ate whatever I wanted. I was skinny. And I couldn't get auditions. I was like, I don't understand. And a friend of mine said, oh, are you going to the Star Trek audition? I was like, what Star Trek audition? She's like, oh, it's on Paramount Lot. They're looking for women 5'10" and taller with like your coloring and your cheekbones. And
you had an agent that wasn't an agent?
My agent literally would never send, and I was like, dude. And so I knew somebody on the Paramount lot who worked in distribution, and I was like, hey, can you leave my name at the gate?
Yeah.
And he did, and I crushed the audition, and I got the part.
Nice. I love it. Were you a Vulcan or an alien?
Oh,
I'm the first
in Star Trek.
In Star Trek history, I am the first female Vulcan on Earth, and I have my own trading card, which is the coolest thing there will ever be.
What episode is that? I want to take a note. I want to watch that episode.
It's the film First Contact.
Oh, it's the film First Contact. Okay.
Yeah, so it's essentially the whole movie is about like the Borg.
The Borg. So you were a Vulcan, a female Vulcan in that movie.
We're basically the ones that we come down at the end of the film in our spaceship, and then the lovely James Cromwell, his character brings us into a bar and introduces us to beer. And there was probably at least another 3 to 4 minutes of stuff that should have made it into the film that didn't make it into the film.
Of course.
Yeah.
I wish I could find it.
I'll have to check that out. I'm gonna watch that and just scroll forward until I find you.
Well, I want to know when are you going to write your memoirs, because I want a copy. I think you probably got some good stories.
My friend Lance, who I tell him all the time that he is like my inspiration. He's my I look up to him because he is an actor who I know from LA. Like, he was friends with my sister first. He was working at Disneyland. He worked there for 8 years in the dinner theater as Jafar. 8 years at Disneyland.
Wow.
And he got the call to go to Broadway when he was in his 50s. And in the last
too late.
In the last 10 years, he's been in no less than 10 Broadway shows. He just did The Music Man with Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster.
Oh my God, that's so nice.
Yeah. So Lance, who is this Broadway star, Broadway veteran, Broadway royalty, is constantly saying, Noelle, when are you going to write your book? You must have stories. I was like, oh, I have stories that could probably get me sued. But they're, even though they're true.
Those are the best kind.
Well, you can't get sued if they're true, because it's not really slander if it's true.
But if it can't be proven that it's true,
yeah, it's true.
Like that casting couch that you've heard of, I'm sure it exists.
Oh, no doubt exists. Yeah.
And there's a reason that I'm not a big movie star or a big TV star. I could have been.
Good for you.
But I was like, this is not why when I moved to Montreal.
Isn't that something?
I moved here because my mom is from here originally, and we were here on a visit, and I met my husband, and I was just done with LA. I was like, you know what? I have dual citizenship because of my mom. And I'm like, I put my stuff in storage and I moved here to see what would happen. And 3 years later, my mom followed me up and brought my stuff on her moving truck. So score for that for me. I didn't have to pay for the moving truck. But it is a really toxic environment to be in for a young actress. And and it's still like, even with all the Me Too, it still happens. And it's just I hear stories from friends of mine who still work in the industry, and I'm like, I don't have any desire to go back to that. Well, I mean, granted, if somebody cast me in a lead role in a movie without me having to sleep with somebody, I'd do it. But
I don't know. I think it's with anything, though, with writing, with film, with music, even with politics. I mean, look at the crazy politics that were happening in the U.S. With people, being questioned to have a spot on the Supreme Court because they literally, attacked a girl and that whole big, thing. But I think, it's a tough career, very tough career.
It really, and it's funny because I talked earlier about my advanced age, as I say, and Lance being my inspiration, and you made a comment about it's never too late when I mentioned about Lance, and I truly believe that, and I believe it so much that I'll be 55 years old on my birthday on July 29th, and on July 28th I am releasing a pop album. Pop music.
Is that why you were in Nashville?
Yeah. So nice. I've been a singer-songwriter for a long time. Everybody always kind of categorized me as folk rock because I play a acoustic guitar. That. I definitely have more of like a pop thing to me, even though I don't really. The only pop artist I listen to is Taylor Swift, who I love, and I was always rejecting pop because in my mind is like, pop music. It's like, people can't write, people can't sing. And then when Taylor Swift came on the scene, 15, 17 years ago, the songwriting is what I love. I love many things about her. She's a really savvy businesswoman, but the songwriting, these relatable songs that we all, like the world collectively, are like, oh my God, I totally get that. And so in the pandemic, when the world stopped, I started writing more. I hadn't written in 10 years because I'd just been doing theater. It was taking up all of my time. And I just started writing, and I started writing with a few people that I really admired, and I have one project that's kind of on the back burner for a little bit, but it's with a musician named Marty Wilson Piper, who when I was 12, his band was my favorite band, and he was my favorite member of the band. And throughout his career, he's been my favorite musician. And we'd known each other kind of peripherally over the years. And in the pandemic, he reached out to me on Facebook and said, do you want to try a songwriting session together? And I was like, what is my life right now? And then he was on tour in Australia. So that kind of put on the back burner that project. And my friend Scott Sachs, who's down in Nashville, is a Grammy Award-winning songwriter. He wrote a song for Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. And this guy, his band opened for The Who. Like, he knows how to craft a perfect pop song.
Yeah.
And I was down in Nashville last summer, and I had borrowed his wife's guitar because I got a slot at the legendary Bluebird Cafe, which was like a bucket list.
Oh,
It was a bucket
yes.
list thing for me, and I got to play 2 songs at which was on my birthday last
I'm
summer.
jealous.
Which was
Wait, which 2 songs? Which 2 songs did you do?
I did my 2 songs. I did Bye Bye and I did Nothing, which
Oh,
are my
are these
2
your 2
their
that you
original
wrote?
songs.
Yeah.
So at the Bluebird, when you go for the writers' night, you have to play your own songs.
Okay.
And it's really competitive to get a slot. And in the last 12 months, I've been able to do it twice. I was back in February and I did it again.
That's exciting.
But while I was there in the summer, Scott and I, who we've been friends for decades, and I had like sung on demos for him, but we'd never written together. And he said, "Do you want to try writing?" I said, "Yeah, okay." We went on Zoom last October, and in 1 hour, we wrote a song. He recorded all his parts at his studio, sent them over to me. I recorded all the vocals and backing vocals at my studio, and we released it a month after writing it. It's called Changing, and it's on all streaming. And people were like, "Oh my God, I totally identify with this song." And we're like, "Oh, we're onto something. Let's write a whole record."
Yeah.
So what's coming out the end of the month is 6 songs, 5 co-written by the 2 of us, and 1 at the last minute. That's a song of Scott's that I've loved forever that he's never released. I said, "Can I do Geronimo, please? Because I think it fits this EP." So leaned very much into pop. It is, I call it pop with a retro flair and relatable lyrics.
Ooh.
And I just hired Canada's biggest music publicist, Eric Alper, who's got like 1 million followers on social media. I just hired him for the month to do the press release, and because I can get myself coverage in Montreal, but I don't know anybody in media outside. And
yeah. I'm super excited and very happy for you that
Thank
you
you.
did that. It's really that's really something. You know, I'm a musician at heart, a singer-songwriter. That's why I moved to New York. And I am just like
Kimbra also plays guitar, and so do I. So we can back you.
Yeah.
We can have a band.
It'll
like
be Noelle and the Cat Tease or something. I don't know, like
Josie and the Pussycat.
Yeah, right there you go.
Speaking of, when we were looking at the clip you sent us a few minutes ago, it looked like all of your backup band were women. Was that true?
Except for Ian, who is my musical director, who's also the one plays with me with my original music. He's coming on my tour with me. So he's the musical director, but it was him that brought that up first. He said, "I feel like," he had to be there playing piano and conducting. He said, "But I feel like we should have an all-female band." And I was like, "That is genius."
Yeah.
So
that's great.
It was Ian Baird from Newfoundland, who is one of my best friends, and it was his idea. And it was like 8 people on stage, and 7 of them were women. Our crew was made up of every possible section of the LGBTQ umbrella. Like we had a trans woman running our sound. We had a non-binary assistant director, assistant stage manager.
Was that by choice, or they just applied and you just hired them? Like
a little bit by choice.
Okay.
From me, coming from Los Angeles, my mindset is so like progressive, and I just noticed that there's a bit of there can be, I don't want to generalize this town or this province, but there can be a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And so we actually, when we held auditions, we actually put in the audition notice that we were open to hiring a trans woman or a non-binary person.
Okay,
not necessarily as Lizzie and I knew I was playing Emma, but potentially as Bridget or even Alice. And what mattered to us was we have no problem with that as long as they can sing the score.
How many people did you audition for the Lizzie musical?
We did our first round of auditions by video submission. We had 65 applicants.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, when we did our first show, we had 10 people come for 9 roles, maybe.
So
But
were
we,
they were auditioning for different roles though, like 65 in total, some for Alice, some for
yeah.
okay, got
So
you.
they would say like their audition form, which is like a Google form, it would say like, what role are you most interested in? And then there
Okay.
would be like, would you accept another role if offered? So we called back, I believe it was 15 people we called back. Hey Bowie. Sorry, my cat.
We got a cat, we got a dog.
I got my puppy.
Do I hear any other kind of
I
animal?
got 2 cats.
My
But
husband.
so we
Yes.
so yeah, we had about, I think it was 15 people we called back for the 3 roles. We knew
That's
that
pretty
I was
good.
playing Emma,
Yeah.
and there were 4 of us behind the table, and we all had note paper, and we all individually, without anybody else knowing, wrote down who we wanted for each role. And when the callbacks were over and we compared notes, we unanimously cast this show.
Oh
Which
wow.
is that's
Wow.
never happened.
Yeah.
Unanimous. Every single person that you just saw in that scene. So it's Courtney Crawford played Alice Russell.
I could see the
Skylar
Alice Russell
Clark.
for sure.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. That was
Yeah.
a shoe in.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the Lizzie too. And who else was
And
And-
so Aaron Carter played Lizzie, and then Skylar
Bridget.
Clark played Bridget. Yeah.
Bridget,
Bridget.
right.
Well,
And she was the only person. She was the only person at the audition. I mean, there were people that tried, but I lived in Ireland for 4 years, so I'm really
Oh, so
picky
it was a
about,
Scottish brogue?
accent.
Yeah.
It was the Irish accent. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like that was really important that we had somebody that could nail that, and
Yeah.
Skylar like did it in spades. So
Yeah.
I have
So-
to ask you
okay, go ahead.
before we leave the casting, after this show wrapped, did you have a hard time getting out of Emma's skin? It was pretty dramatic.
Yeah. You know, our last day of shows, we had 2 shows. It was a Saturday, so we had a matinee and then an evening. And we had, I think it was the Thursday after we closed, where the cast, Nadia Barucci, our director, and Ian Baird, our musical director, went to karaoke. And we went to one of those Korean karaoke places where you have your own room. And it was just the 6 of us. And we sang and sang and sang, and we sang like every angsty song you can think of. I sang "You Ought to Know." I think it was Aaron sang the Lizzo song. Skylar sang like some big power thing. Courtney did "Defying Gravity" from Wicked. And then at the end of the night, we stood in a circle and sang in each other's faces the entirety of Bohemian Rhapsody. And I say that was like that was the decompression that I needed, because I was on a plane 2 days later to go to Nashville to finish my album. And those days after closing any show, like I had the hardest time with Carrie, because I mean, she's bonkers, Carrie's mother.
Yeah.
So to
full
be this
tilt,
like religious fanatic who abuses her child, who, you know, like then ultimately kills her child, and that was really hard to kind of take myself out of that darkness.
Yes.
But with Lizzie, it was the few days after we closed, it was just this overwhelming sadness, because of all the shows we've done, which is we've done shows for 8 years. I think we've done 10 productions or 11. And this, in my opinion, and in Ian's opinion, I just saw him last night, but in my opinion, this was our best production. Absolutely, hands down. And all of our productions have been really good and critically acclaimed, and audiences love them. But this show was so special. The material, the script, the music, the cast, the crew, the theater space, the everything was just magical. And it's really hard when you are an independent theater company like mine that you can only do 8 or 9 shows. We rehearsed for 6 weeks, and we did, I think, 8 shows. And so that's the hardest part, like, is how can it be over?
The end, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I miss Emma, because I miss, like, I think I'm a strong person, but I miss the kind of that strength and that stoicness that she had about her. But what I loved the most about playing Emma is that scene that you showed, and the reason that Watchmen is one of my favorites is because that song is the shift in the dynamic between Lizzie and Emma, at least as far as the musical goes. I don't know what it was like in real life, but
yeah.
At the beginning of the song, Emma is singing the higher part. Emma's singing the lower part, because Emma's the solid one, and Lizzie is singing the higher part. And then there's a shift that you see in Erin's face before we walk up for her to go in the jail cell, and we switch to her singing the low part and me singing the high part. And that is, as far as the music goes, that's the dynamic shift between the two of them.
Yeah,
and
well,
I love that so much.
Yeah, and I think Emma definitely has like a religious how do you put it, Shelley? Like she was more religious than Lizzie was, I think, and lived by that kind of like that rule with more morality
and that Bible that I'm using in that scene, that was the Bible that I used in Carrie as Mrs. White. It's the same. And I actually thought about, like, should I use a different Bible? I have like my mom's old prayer books. Like, should I use something different? And there was something about me wanting to have that kind of invisible string between the crazy religious fanatic and then the Emma, who is not the crazy religious fanatic. She's just religious, she's very spiritual. So I decided to keep that, because I wanted to associate it with not such a bonkers character.
Yes. Well, let me ask you, how did Quebec receive Lizzie?
We had 5 of the best reviews we've always gotten good reviews, but these reviews were like ridiculously good. And every single person that came to see this, like, people were waiting for us in the lobby after the show because they wanted to tell us how much they loved it. And people came back. Like, we ran for 2 weekends, so people came back. Like, I had people that came to opening that came back for closing, which that clip that you watched is actually from our closing performance. We filmed opening and closing, and there's like, I still have to edit the video. There are some things that I love from opening, but that Watchmen, throughout the run, we grew even more into like our characters, and I really love it. So it was really special.
Yeah. Tracy wants to know who you played in Carrie. You played the mother, right?
I closed when I came back, I didn't have the comments open. Hi, Tracy. I played Margaret White, Carrie's mother, the Piper Laurie role. And in the musical, she's a little more fleshed out than in that particular film. You get a little bit more through, the scenes that I'm only in 5 scenes, but each scene has a song. And throughout that, you learn a little bit more about maybe why Margaret is the way she is. And something and I still have it up at my desk at my office, I carried my paperback copy of Carrie with me every day. And I would read and reread, because Stephen King provided that backstory that isn't in the film or in the play, and that as an actor, I needed to understand why, like, to wrap my head around why she is the way she is. And the consensus, as it's somewhat implied in the book, is that Carrie is a product of rape. And that's why Margaret treats her the way she treats her. And she truly believes that killing her is what's going to save her. And so that was a whole
religious based thing too. Yeah.
When you're playing a character that like has that kind of stuff that you can look to. I could look to the book, I could look to the film, I could look, you know, to kind of, even if you're playing a villain doesn't believe that they're the bad guy. And Margaret is very much a villain in the story. But you have to, as an actor, find the humanity in a character. So I tried to tap more into the fact that she killed her because she was trying to save her, which one reviewer didn't like about my performance. He said I was too, I don't know, remember the words, he is compassionate or something like that. But as Margaret is written in the book, that's how it is in the musical. It's very different from the film. It's very different from the film.
Yeah. So, getting back to the Lizzie Borden, I have to ask the ultimate question: is do you think she was guilty or innocent?
I think she absolutely was guilty.
Oh, and your reasoning behind it?
I think that she was guilty, but she was so adored by the people in the town, and her father was so hated by the people in the town that they let it slide. That's, I mean, then there was also the muddled testimony and the lack of evidence and the, you know, I love the theory that Emma wasn't in Fairhaven, that she was actually there and like there is, you know, I'm sure you saw that theory, that she participated in it. I mean, I didn't believe that or apply that in my performance, but I think so. I do. I think that she just, that, you know, I guess, I mean, I think O.J. Simpson did it too, so.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
I can't argue there with you either. And that's why they always talk about the cases being so similar, because even though both of those people were acquitted, you know, like, there's still consensus that, you know, probably they were guilty. And that's what makes the cases so interesting. Now, I really hope you get a chance to visit Fall River and go to the house and experience just walking in the house and feeling like you're in the 1800s, because it you know, it is presented that way, that you're walking back in time. And it's such an incredible experience. And then maybe in the future you'll do the play again and have a whole different insight on, like, because once you're in the house, it gives you like the just exploring, you know, and realizing how the crime was done. You know, it presents its questions, you know, and
sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty I don't know. I'm always amazed when I go in the house, you know, no matter how many times I'm there. Shelley lived it for 18 years, so she can contest, and she has stories too.
Oh, I have a book coming.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we really wanted, we really tried to find time. Nadia, the director, and Ian, the music director, and we tried to find time to get down there, because I really wanted to sleep in Emma's room, Lizzie and Emma's room.
Oh, it's a tiny little room. Like, Emma's room is like a closet. Yeah,
I know, and
I slept in Lizzie's room. So
you did, but
well,
like we're going down.
Yeah.
Ian and I are doing, as I mentioned before we started the show, Ian and I are doing a house concert in Cape Cod, and we know that we have to drive through Boston to get there. So I'm going to kind of map out to see if either on, I don't think we can, maybe on the way in. Or on the, I mean, we're driving in on like the Friday, and then our concert is on Saturday. We're going to have just like time in Cape Cod on Sunday, and then we drive back on Monday. So I'm going to see if
you could sneak down. Fall River's not far from Boston.
Yeah,
not far at all.
Yeah. No, Tracy, I meant it metaphorically that Shelley lived it. Being a tour guide, she didn't live in the house, but she almost could have lived in the house because she was there every day. So
I spent many nights.
Yes.
Sleeping over in all the rooms over many years. So it's a character, really. The house is part of the story. The way the house is.
Well,
laid
you
out.
saw my poster, like that. I designed the poster myself. Like for Carrie, my sister did the poster. My sister's like a marketing whiz, but she didn't have the time, and I couldn't afford to hire somebody to do it because independent theater, my credit card. So I designed it myself. And the first piece that I took was a picture of the house.
Mm.
And so it looks like a line drawing, but it's actually a picture of the house with a filter applied.
Yeah.
And then I put on like the cameo. I did it in Canva, which, it's like the easiest way to grab it. And then I added the cameo, and then I added the axe, and I positioned it many different ways. And then I added the blood, and I positioned it different ways. And I sent it out to people, and I was like, which one do you prefer? Until I was able to land on, like, this is the font that I like. This is the placement of the blood that I like.
I have to ask you, what sign are you?
I'm a Leo.
Okay,
I'm such a Leo.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking you're so detailed. Like I was thinking, okay, what sign is that? But
yeah, I am. It's like in life, in everyday life, I'm a total slob. I have like file folders and all over the coffee table. I've got, my lip gloss and all these things. But my office and when I'm working, very organized, and I really learned that from my sister, because I was always a slob. Even as a kid, I would shove my stuff under my bed and tell my mom I cleaned my room. But my sister, being a marketing director, she was first the marketing director for Variety Club, the children's charity, Variety Club International. And then she was the marketing director for DTS, the surround sound company. And over the years, being an actor, you need temp jobs I didn't want to wait tables. And so I think it's 6 times that my sister hired me to be her temp for like a month or 6 weeks at a time. And she would call my mom and say, the best assistant I've ever had, and she wants to be an actress. I can't keep her. So I learned that like hyper organization when it comes to work. Like my desk in my office upstairs, I've got like the, little consoles and the things and the particular trays for the everything. So with my graphics, same. Yeah.
So what's next for you? So you're doing
that was my next question too.
Yeah, you're releasing the Nashville. Is it online or is it a physical CD?
It's going to be both. So
Live,
it's called Ain't a Tourist. It's coming out on July 28th. There is already.
All right.
Let's see if I can. Hang on. I'm going to put on my glasses for a second.
Yeah, could you message us when it's released so we can learn how to find it?
I'll send you. Yeah, I have like
the links or
the pre-save link is already exists.
Okay.
For Spotify. There's pre-order for digital downloads. There's pre-order for the physical CD. And then the music video drops the same day. So you can find everything actually on my website, which is noellehannibal.com.
So are you going on tour in the U.S. or are you going worldwide?
Right now, U.S. and it's a little tour because it's kind of, like a soft open. It's kind of like that. So because I haven't really released original music in so long, I don't know if are people going to come? Maybe, maybe not. So
it's a different world out there.
It's a different world. And with the response that I've gotten towards these tracks, I think that it will click, which is why I hired that publicist. So the first sort of thing is I'm going to California, going home on July 27th. I'm going to be in San Francisco for the first 4 days. The main reason that I'm going home for my birthday is to try to get a ticket to Taylor Swift. As I mentioned, I love her. So she's in San Francisco and then she's in LA. And so I was like, well, while I'm here, I may as well do a house concert. Oh, well, since I'm releasing the CD that day, I might as well do. So I booked a concert up there, and then I'm driving down to LA where I'm playing 4 shows in the LA kind of
Is
San
this on your
Diego
website?
area.
Is this on your website, the tours? Okay, so we can look it up there. And the other question I want to ask is, what is the next theater project? Are you doing a next theater project?
I don't have, Ian and I talked about it yesterday when I saw him. I don't have a show picked. I don't have anything picked. Because of this, it's expensive to release music. It's expensive to press CDs. And I'm doing this grant application. I have my list of shows that I want to do, but Many of them require more funds than I have, so I'm
Mm.
hoping for at least a partial grant.
Okay.
They're bigger, like even bigger productions. Like our production, was very much done like black box.
Okay.
Our only set piece that we had, which you can't see in that clip, but on the stage left side at the back and on the stage right side at the back were portraits, the actual portraits of Abby and Andrew that are available online, that were in frames, and that we, as a cast, throughout moments in the play, would turn the light on and off. And then once they were killed, which is the end of Act 1, when we come back on stage for Act 2, the portraits have been removed. It's just the empty frames. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, Noelle, thank you so much for coming on our show. We appreciate you carving out some time for us. We enjoyed listening to your theater production. It's fantastic what you do. And, I wish you all the best of luck with your grant proposal, because I've done a few. They're tricky. And yeah, we'll keep our fingers and our toes crossed. And
eyes.
everything will be crossed. And I look forward to your CD when it comes out. And until then, just keep us posted with what you're up to, and we'll keep track of you. And our time's pretty much up, but thank you so much. Shelley, you want to say anything?
Thank you so
sure.
much.
Let me know.
Yeah,
when you come down, I'll meet you in Fall River. And I also want you to know Taylor Swift just lives down the road from me, and she was here last weekend. So there you go.
She's always in the.
Shelley, did you raid the yard? Did you? I mean, did you see her? Like, it must be a fortress.
It's a fortress.
Yeah.
I stood at her gate, and the bodyguards move you along.
Yeah. No, the fans are crazy.
You should send Chip out.
I will definitely not. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. This is amazing. Like I said, it's not just because I did the musical that I as I told you, since I was a child, the Lizzie Borden story has been so interesting to me. So it was really, I'm happy to have met you and to have done your show. And now I can watch all the episodes and learn more.
and all the other stuff that Shelley and I do also too. We just don't have the podcast. We do many. I'm always constantly doing stuff. So, but anyway, have a great night. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. We do appreciate you. You're always here for us. And, drop us a line if you hear any news, new news, old news, whatever. And Shelley, thank you so much for doing this with me for so many years now. And it's been fun. And we'll see you next time. Noelle, take care, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.